Hi, remote. Welcome to our monthly creator webinar. So here are the first. Nice to see friendly face here. I'm very excited. We have so much achievement and improvement since last month's webinar. I have a great guy here with me today, and we are bridging from, I guess, from the west coast of the United States to Lisbon, Portugal. Right here, we are dealing with a lot of remotes, such you guys. You're coming from all over the world, and I guess there's no better way to introduce this community to start by letting us know where you come from, guys. I'm from Portugal, Lisbon. I can just pin on the map. You can pin on the map. We are using the better scene environment to have this friendly icebreaker. And once you have been a city on the map, you can just, of course, put the name and surprise question if you want. You can search for a nice picture like this. The people can also visit you virtually. It's a very cool way to introduce a webinar, but also a workshop anyway. So if you want to visit Lisbon, just click on me. Wow. Deb, I think you know already my picture from Lisbon, and I know already this very nice picture from Minneapolis. Click on the map. Yeah, I want to see a lot of pin. I don't know, Matt, maybe you don't have the keyboard or the mouse right here, but this should be your name on San Francisco, or I'm wrong. Yes. Hey, Vlad. Timmy Suarez looks very nice. And Sunny, nice to have you there. Wow. I love to take 4 minutes to travel before every webinar starts. So if you're right now with the map, we can just stop and move to the next step. Of course, there won't be a webinar that starts without introducing the air generation. What is the air generation? Yeah, the air generation for most of you already members, for the newcomers, of course, coming from the Miro community or other community. Just think about the air generation like a remote place, a community, online community our member used to call home, where we find inspiration, we find connection, we are learning, we are sharing. And yeah, we are a vibrant people, of course, loving using AI and many other stuff. So you're more than welcome in this event that is support and powered, of course, by great partners. You know almost anything and everything, I guess, about Miro. I don't present. And the Miro community is the first support from those webinars and workshops, community workshops. Of course, everything happening in Butter and in Butter Scene, it's one of the best options if you want to drive workshop or interactivity remotely. And if you're stuck to work with Zoom, just move on Butter and start to have good experience. Last but not least, and Discovered is our talent and career partners that provide, of course, great job and open position in our community hub. If you are from design, product, or tech, you'll find remote or hybrid position available in our community environment. And so, because we're a community, we are rewarding our member. Everything, every interaction, every engagement you can have in this Butter environment, of course, will help you to win and earn some swag from the Aerosprint team. So think about it. We'll have 3 winners at the end of the day of a 30 euro coupon to purchase templates on our Aerosprint store. And everything will be evaluated from better engagement interface. So any reaction from the emoji menu, every chat from the chat, every GIF sent, yeah, is tracked. It's not about being a big brother. It's just about knowing what's happened during the session to improve the next session, of course. And at the end, I'll know who will be the most engaged participant. And if you're all good and all ready now, just send me a thumbs up from the React menu like this. I know everybody know how to do it, of course. That's pretty cool. So right now it's time. Yeah, it's time to close the slide and yeah, to move on people. And of course, I guess I made a smart and small introduction, Matt. If you're okay, before we go. So what you have to know about my guest today is Matt Wallaert has spent nearly 20 years applying behavioral science to real-world challenge. Of course, he moved from startup to Fortune 500 companies, leading teams build product and drive change. And yeah, also his main focus was behavior. And when he founded BC.io, he had the purpose to help organizations to build their own behavioral science capacities. And today he's mostly a kind of chief experience officer at Ocean. He focuses on creating quality job opportunity globally. Of course, a dynamic speaker, as you will see, a very nice video conferencing dancer, as you don't know, but I can guarantee. And at the end, yeah, Matt is known to making behavioral science accessible, actionable, and deeply human. I guess it's exactly why you are here to experiment this whole thing. So thank you, Matt, so much for being here today. And my first question for you, of course, will be to present you. And if you have any crunchy insights or fun fact about yourself, it's up to you.
Oh man, crunchy insights and fun facts. Well, as I said on the map, I live in San Diego, California, and so it's a lovely, warm day. Generally, most days I get out to surf or box here in San Diego. I know, Deb. I like, I saw you were in the middle of the country. I like the middle of the country too. I do get around a fair bit, but I'm settled in San Diego. I'm originally from Oregon. I have a kiddo named Bear. We can talk about all sorts of fun, weird things about my life. I miss the sea, and it's only been about a half an hour since I've been there. So I would do this webinar from the ocean if I could, but I haven't figured out how to make it float yet. So we'll get there.
Very cool, very cool. So I think we are on the same side. We're not on the same side, but we're facing the same kind of ocean with big waves, surf, and yeah, and I guess happy life. I hope for you, my friend. So right now, about your life and about your professional milestone, would you draft a bit for our attendees? The most important event or milestone in your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I sort of started in academia. I'm a social psychologist by training. I left wanting to do more applied work. And that was 20 or so years ago when applied behavioral science wasn't really a field yet. People were just starting to talk about the application of behavioral economics and stuff into business. So I went to a startup as the head of product, sold that, built and sold a couple more startups, sold them, went to Microsoft as their head of behavioral science. And then, that's been my career, has sort of been being the head of behavioral science, different places. I was also in charge of Microsoft Ventures for a while. So I've always had one foot kind of in the startup community and one foot in the corporate community. Wrote a book along the way that did pretty well. It's been a fun career. I love that applied behavioral science is more common now. We'll talk more about behavioral science in a little bit and why I love it and what I think it does in the world. But, for me, it's been a career of working on something that I truly believe in, and that's such a gift.
Okay, amazing. That's I think a fully and complete journey in career, Matt. And yeah, I think you're the positive example of the power of entrepreneurship on one side, and also, yeah, when you're delivering something true and something good. I mean, the success is just around the corner. At least in the US. I mean, in France, you can be very talented, but nobody will spend $1 on you. So, that's the cultural difference. But
Oh, but even, I mean, even in the US, that's true, right? Like, I think there are a ton of people, very talented people, who get passed over because of race, because of gender, because of
of course,
class, because of
of
access to
course.
different things. I grew up in very rural Oregon, um, where traditionally I wouldn't have had a lot of economic opportunities, and I had to, move to New York City to be an executive. And so, I think one of the things that is exciting to me about remote work and the world of remote work is the possibility for people to stay embedded in the communities that they want to be in.
That's exactly that's a very more likely air generation spirit, and it's exactly what we're trying to also enforce on this side of the ocean in Europe, and yeah, teach the people like your what's really matter is the impact is not being inside the coffee machine in an office. So anyway, I think that's also the good time to introduce the quiz. So, guys, I want now you all participants to let me know, uh, are you more likely? There's people here that work from home forever. There's people that are remote worker, but what is the difference? Of course, some of you are in the office, but working in a distributed team. And other like me are more digital nomad, on the go with a laptop, always the laptop and the headset. And there's people that are not remote at all, but that's very interested about product, creator, creativities. And there's people who don't know what is remote, but I'm quite sure they won't be in this room. So you just have a couple of more, couple of more seconds to let you vote, guys. We have 20 to answer on 30 participants. Very cool. And think about it, we are using still this poll from Butter Scene, and as you can see, they are super user friendly, and they really can bring back some rhythm when your people or your participant feel a bit behind in a workshop. So yeah, consider also interactivity and entertainment during your workshop. Your remote workshop session is very important. So come on, I'll give you five, four, three, two, one, and the poll is over. So here the result, guys. You're mostly home office, and we have, believe me or not, the difference between home office and a remote worker can be based like remote worker doesn't necessarily mean you're at home versus when you're in home office. I know few people in this room that can speak a lot about it. They are mostly, working between meeting room number one in front of the bed, meeting room number two in front of the couch, meeting room number three. I don't want to hurt in the bathroom or in the toilet. It's not my stuff, but that's the big difference. And of course, there's more and more not remote at all in our community, also because we're delivering experience, facilitation experience, hybrid or remote. And we're sharing a lot of stuff and interesting stuff about AI, and we are just bring more and more training. So it doesn't necessarily mean like air generation. If you're not air, you're still in the air. So let's go to the next question, my friend. And we're getting now back more to what makes you so special. What and how much the collaboration on your side have changed or has been impacted since the COVID? I mean, maybe in the US it's been like normal to be, a nomad, but in Europe it was like, hey, we're going every day to the work and to the office, and we're happy together. To hey, I'm stuck at home. I don't even know how to connect to a Zoom meeting. So maybe also this had a huge impact for you, Matt.
Yeah. I think COVID in many ways was an accelerant factor for a trend that already existed, right? So if you look at how many workers were remote over time, it had always been sort of on the rise. And then COVID comes and it goes boop. And then we see a backlash against that. We see return to office, we see those things. But really, if you look at the data, we're back to where we sort of would have been if we hadn't had the blip, if that makes sense. Meaning it's still higher than it was pre-COVID, right? And it's sort of where it would naturally have been if COVID hadn't happened. So what that suggests to me is, there's some equilibrium point where it'll continue to drift up and up and up and up until it hits an equilibrium, but we haven't reached that yet. I've been a remote worker, I was a remote worker pre-COVID. So even in New York City, when I was the head of behavioral science for Frog Design, I lived on the Upper West Side. Frog's offices were in Brooklyn. There was no real point in sitting on the subway for an hour for no reason. I would go in when there was a reason to go in. But, if that, no one wants to go into an office just to sit on Zoom, right? That's not helpful. And so, I would go in periodically. If we look at my life now, we have a fascinating company, right? Because I have, at least my part of the organization is about 500 people, mostly in Sri Lanka. There's me and one other American. And so, but even the 500 people in Sri Lanka, we have a co-working space so they can go in and co-work if they want, but the majority of them are actually working from home, even within the same country, even within the same city, right? And so, I think there's an interesting difference between sort of not in the office and remote, right? They're not remote. So every call I have today, it's quite hot and humid in Colombo today. So everybody I talked to was hot and sweaty because they were really in the same place, even though they weren't physically in the same building, right? And so there's this interesting sort of like, what does it mean to be remote? Time zones are always a problem for us. So the biggest thing for me is time zones. I wake up at 4 a.m. so that I can work with my Sri Lankan colleagues during their evening. And then we work again in their morning, my evening. So I'll log in at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, work a little bit with them in what is their morning. I actually love that. So when I was I'll tell a short story that I think captures why time zones can actually work in your advantage. So when I was in college, I had two collaborators, two professors that I worked with a ton that we published a lot of stuff. So one is a very famous guy, Barry Schwartz. He was towards the end of his career. He was a bit older. He was in his sort of late 60s. And like many older adults, he got up quite early in the morning, right? He would get up, 5 a.m. That was sort of when he worked. And so if we were doing a paper, he would sort of like look at the paper and make comments 5 a.m. Then I, as a young person, would get up at like 8. And then I would look at the paper and make a few comments. And then our other collaborator he loved to get up at like 2 p.m. He would sleep till 2 p.m. and then he'd work all night. And so then at 2 o'clock, he would make another round of revisions. And then at night, before he went to bed, Barry would make a round of revisions. And then I would make a round of revisions before I went to bed. And then Andrew, who liked to stay up all night, would make a round of revisions. And so we could do 6 full cycles of revisions in one day just because we were waking up at slightly different times, all in the same time zone, all in the same place, right? I think that the under talked about piece of true, distributed work is, time zones can be an impediment, but they also can be a superpower if you sort of organize.
Exactly. We're touching something very, very deep here. Is when I started also working for a car manufacturer in Europe, I was also connected with some research company based in the US. And at this stage, we were programming a prototype with developers from the Mozilla Foundation, and those guys didn't told me like, we're taking the job, but I didn't knew they have an engagement in Tokyo to participate to a hackathon, and I just figured out like we have the researcher from Forrester guys in New York, Boston, and we have the design team in Paris, and these couple of developers, they were in Tokyo basically. And I was very frightened at the beginning, like, what's that freaky organization? And as you can say, when you have the ability to change your comprehension, yes, of course, a treat can be a super opportunity. And and we had put this Follow the Sun organization on the project, and it was even when they were back in France, I was like, okay, guys, go back to Tokyo, because it was more interesting working like this. So yeah, there's always a good way, and that's something also a partner I want to promote. Circa is a superpower for your smartphone that help you to define, your day work in almost every kind of cities. And if it's, on a riverside, it's very difficult. But believe me or not, you can, turn the screen and you have all the hours and the time zone. It's you need new tools to embrace those changes. And maybe next time, Matt, I'll ask what are your trick. So now let's put this remote stuff a bit back, and let's focus more on, as I told you, specificity about behavior design. Exactly before I met you on LinkedIn, I wasn't okay. I knew about UX research, and we're making a lot of pattern identification and paper on user research, not just playing with Figma. But I didn't have this behavior design thing in mind. When did it start with you, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was in grad school, I was always very conscious that there was this opportunity to apply what we had learned in the lab in the world, but that it wasn't often done, right? That the nature of academia is that it's somewhat insular, right? You're sort of talking to other academics about the thing that you know, rather than talking to the world about what they can do with it, which is why I ended up leaving academia and moving into the applied behavioral science world. And, once I got into sort of working in companies, particularly in tech, particularly in design, I realized how much of what people were doing was just, sort of the highest paid person's opinion, right? Boris is the boss and Boris has an idea. So that's the thing we're going to do because Boris is the boss, right? And that just is, for a science, it's sort of maddening, right? I was talking to somebody the other day actually about applied behavioral scientists' unwillingness to market. And I think why we're so averse to marketing a lot of the time is just because we want things to sell on their own self-evident evidence, right? Like we want decisions to be self-evident because they have clear defined reasons why they should be the way that they are. And so I think, that's how I ended up in applied behavioral science, although we didn't call it that at the time. I was, the head of product, and it was my job to help get us to product decisions. But rather than me saying, hey, this is what it's going to be, there was a process for evidence gathering. And that's the part that I really loved. And it all came back to, when I was in college, I had this teacher, we read a paper where I felt like the authors were overreaching their evidence, right? That the conclusion they drew was sort of not fully backed up by what they had found. And then my professor said something really fascinating. Andrew said, the field sort of agrees with this interpretation, but because this is science, there's an orderly way to respond, which is to gather your own evidence that shows that there's an alternative interpretation of what they found. And that's always sort of followed forward for me into design, right? If I think that if Boris, as the highest paid person, says we should do A, well, there's an orderly way to respond, which is to generate evidence that says actually B is a more attractive alternative than A is, right? It's not I have to argue with Boris. It's not I have to prove Boris is a bad person. It's not like any of that. It's just I have to generate the evidence that demonstrates that A is a suboptimal alternative to B. And so that's where sort of applied behavioral science and behavioral design really clicked for me, was this orderly way of advancing a conversation about what to do that didn't rely on power or, how good of a speaker you were or any of those sorts of things. And that really hooked me. That's what I loved about science, and it's what I love about science.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I mean, I have been driven a lot of UX research lab in the past, more on the designer side. And, all the cognitive science was not reachable. I mean, when you're not Meta, when you're not Facebook, yeah, or when you're not a software editor, when you're a car manufacturer, you will never investigate more than, okay, let's make some usability test. Does the people can push on the button? Yes, let's go. So yeah, that's very fascinating. It's all the time fascinating me. And right now, you have shared with me a framework. It's almost more, I think, a class where you taking the people from 0 to 100 on this. Can you speak a bit about this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we have lots of what, I wrote a fairly well-received book. We do have an online class that people can take in a self-paced way, but we also want people to self-learn. And so, we put out lots of very free and easy guides for people to do this. Generally, these days, I teach a process that we've created called SIDE, the strategy, insights, design, evaluation. So the idea that the first thing that you have to do is articulate who is going to be doing what when you're successful. So the title of my book is Start at the End, because you have to start with what will be true at the end. For the coders in the crowd, like, this is sort of the design version of unit testing. You sort of write the test first, right? And you say, okay, well, when everything's right, this light will turn green, and then you code until the light turns green. Same thing here. When I design until the behavior that I want is created, right? And I'll keep going and redesigning until I get the behavior that I want. But it all starts by first articulating the behavior you want. And that's all strategy really is. It's just a very careful articulation of who is going to be doing what when we're successful. Okay. Then we have a thing that we're going to do today, right? The insights phase. How do we use quantitative and qualitative methods to understand, what the promoting pressures, things that make a behavior more likely, and inhibiting pressures are that cause a behavior to be true, right? All behavior is a balance between reasons to do something and reasons not to do something. We have to understand why those occur, because that's actually what we're changing. One of the things you'll figure out about me, Boris, is that I am a lying liar. I lie all the time. And the biggest lie I'll ever tell you is about changing behavior, because we don't actually change behavior, right? I can't, open Deb's brain and poke the do the thing I want button, and then she does it. Like, that doesn't work, right? What really is happening is I'm changing this balance of pressures, right? I'm introducing or strengthening promoting pressures, I'm weakening inhibiting pressures, and that causes behavior to occur. So I don't change behavior, I change pressure. So we need to illustrate what those pressures are, which is what we're going to do today. Once we do that, then we can start designing solutions against those, right? We can say, well, what are the things that will change those pressures? And then finally, we have to experiment, right? We have to say, okay, given our understanding of the pressures, given our understanding of what we could do, now what actually works, right? So that strategy, insights, design, evaluation chain is really just how we apply the scientific method into applied design.
Okay, it can be also, I heard about neuro-linguistic approach for coaching or self-coaching, and to induct changes and or allow changes to happen. I guess we are really close to this mind shifting, but anyway, I think changing behaviors is changing, so we have to use any kind of tools, but don't be shy about being a liar. I mean, I drive a lot of discovery interview with customer and with user, and at the end I was so much time confronting discovery interview, confirmation interview, and it was like, hey, she said A at the first interview, she said B at the second interview, but it's the same person. How can it happen? And I figure out also the customer are lying. So you see, it's something. Our brain is a great manipulator, and so we have to live with it. So maybe we won't long that much in the podcast session. And it's the time everybody's waiting for, is the playground. So let's close this first round. Let's move into another composition. And of course, my friend, I'm very happy to share this next experience on Miro for sure. So we're back into our further scene slides, and good news, I have a special slide inside. It's a slide with a Miro board embed. So I'll take everybody to me. Just see the connection growing and growing and growing. Wait a second. And Deb, you're here. I know you were just a visitor when you started at the Air Generation, Deb, because you were on mural. But now I think if they could put some star aside the expert user on mural, you have a lot of star right now. So I'll take everybody to me in three, two, one, now. Guys, this is Matt. You know already, but there's something you don't know is we'll start to chat a bit about designing for behavior right now. Matt, do you want to introduce this question and launch this short activity with the people, or you want me to do it?
No, I'll do it. So let's start with our standard warm-up question, which is, when was the last time you changed your own behavior and how do you do it? I want you to spend just a few minutes here introspecting about your own behavior change and what caused that behavior change. It could be a physical behavior change, right? You start working out more or less, start doing a specific thing. It could be changing your eating. It could be health related. It could be playing with somebody. It could be changing a relationship. But the key, remember, is always to focus on behavior, right? It's not changing your emotions or cognitions, right? Because those we don't have any access to. Right? I don't know what you're actually thinking. I don't know what you actually feel, right? As the song says, I don't know what love is, but I want you to show me, right? I want you to show me
Man,
the behavior.
you're really on
Not me.
fire. I'm just a bit confused. I have lost the control on the yes. Sorry, give me a second. Yeah, I have unlocked this crazy board and I've merged the notes. Guys, participant, would you make me a favor? Just get out from the notes just for a second. I will make this right in no time. I'm so sorry. Yeah, please, visitor, don't select any notes. Get out from the note, please, just for a second. Right now I can't do anything until you're not stopping to use it.
There you
And
go.
yeah, so here I'll group this and I log this and whoo.
Mm-hmm. See, you
Come
should
on.
have waited for me to be singing. Everyone will
Yeah,
be horrified by that, and
yeah,
so
you are singing and I'm crying, so I think we can make a
not
band.
unusual to be loved by everyone.
Okay, guys, I'm almost done. So everything is now unlocked. You can get back to the note, and you can, of course, start to start to think about
When was the
all
last
we
time you
spoke
changed
about.
your own behavior? And remember, and how did you do it? So started yoga again in January this year, but how'd you do it? How'd you get yourself to restart yoga? Right? What changed in your environment? What did you change in your life that allowed you to make the change here?
So I'll put 5 minutes on the clock, guys. A bit of music, and it's up to you now to go and contribute. Let's go, guys. Yeah. Okay. We're starting to have a lot of interesting things.
Good.
Of course,
I see people struggling, and the hard part is always how'd you do it? Right?
yeah.
People always, yeah, it's really easy to rattle off things I've changed. It's a lot harder to rattle off how you did it, right? What did you change in your life that caused that thing to be able to be true?
I really appreciate cooking 95% of my and my partner meals. I heard most recently that there's the two most happy situation in the world is a married male and an unmarried woman. So you'll see, cooking the meal shouldn't have to be that difficult. It's the essence of our living, but we're struggling. Okay, now I want to also improve your game, so you can start to use yeah, some emoji, sticky reaction. There's a lot of great things you can take from the React menu in the Miro. Of course, Miro have integrate recently the dynamic emojis. You can have also the reaction in the Miro. That's very nice if you want to send love. And you still have a couple of more minutes to go. Any crispy topic for you, Matt, on this board?
Mute myself. I mean, I see a bunch of really familiar things on here. You know, what I'll say, having done this many times, is people mostly gravitate towards physical changes. So eating, sleeping, health-related behaviors, right? Even though we change all sorts of behaviors, right? Maybe you want to talk to your mom more often. Like, you know, we naturally gravitate towards things that we think of as like pro-social, even when lots of our behavior change is not particularly pro-social.
Yeah.
But I love all the examples up on here. You know, I think it's hard for people to think about what are the promoting and inhibiting pressures that actually changed, that allowed this behavior change to happen. People have listed off lots of behaviors. It's a lot harder to introspect about how you did it. That's part of what we have to do as applied behavioral scientists, right? We have to get to the level of like, how does that actually work? So that we are able to you know, articulate, because it's all well and good. You know, I prompted you with when you changed your own behavior, but most of the time in the workplace, we're collaborating on behavior change. It's Boris and I together trying to change somebody's behavior.
Exactly.
Right. And so, you know, sometimes when I have longer time, I'll prompt people with, tell me about a time you failed to change your own behavior and what happened. And then it's a lot easier for people to articulate the cause, right? So if I said, Boris, when did you fail to change your own behavior? And he said, oh, you know, I tried to cook my own meals and I failed. And he'll say, what? And I'll say, why? And he's very able to say why, right? Why he failed. We have a lot harder time saying why we succeeded, right? Success feels like, oh, I just did it, right? It's intrinsic to me. This is psychological bias, right?
That's true.
That failure is identified as due to external things, right? This is what we call the actor-observer bias, right? So failure is attributable to external things. Success, what's my own success, is attributable to just me being me. How did I do it? Grit, intelligence, like all of my Matt Wallert being awesome things.
That's great. That's great to also explore. You know, this. You know how failure takes so much space in our world. I think it's just, you know, from inside out, the way we are you know, our brain mostly run and works. So I think we are almost done with this, and as usual, I never leave this time session without trying to clear a bit the path from your contribution, guys. Do you think we could generate a one-page wrap-up from all your contribution in less than 30 seconds? Send me a thumbs up if you're believing me, or a thumbs down if you think it's impossible to sort all these insights in so few time. Yes. You know, I have superpower. You know why I have superpower? Because of course I'm using Miro, but also I'm using AI. And so look at that. Just making a short prompt and introducing all your note as a context. Yeah, we have that kind of wrap up develop in, of course, less than 30 seconds. So I think I'm good for that. But if I can, obviously you can, and yeah, don't be shy about AI. Just go on the Miro calendar or in the air generation community. We're sending every week a new workshop on AI to learn how to build bots, to learn how to make prompts. And next month with Kusuma, our facilitator, learn how AI can help you to facilitate better. So now it's the time. Yeah, it's the time to. I don't know if it's reduce the pressure or rise the pressure, Matt. But look at this. We have designed a beautiful template collaboration with Matt. Do you want to introduce the instruction, Matt?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to do this in a series of phases, folks. We'll have short timers on it to help keep us on track. The first thing to do is everybody find your own board. So find a board that other people have not taken, and then put your name right in that big sticky right in the center so that you can claim it as yours, right? So if you scroll down, he's made you lots of copies. There should be enough copies for everybody, we hope. Grab a board, put your name in the center. There you go. Perfect. Where it says behavioral statement. Now, normally you'd write the behavioral statement there. What is the behavioral statement? So a behavioral statement, remember I said all projects start with strategy. They start with an articulation of who will be doing what when you're successful, right? That's all a behavioral statement really is just an articulation of who will be doing what when you're successful. I'll put the template that we use in the chat. We have a very formal articulation for do that. We're not going to get into it today because it takes a little bit to learn and we only have limited time, but it's easy enough to learn about elsewhere. So, but right now, let's put your name there. And the behavior we're going to think about today is eating M&Ms. And I recognize this is a very American-centric version. You can use whatever your local version of M&Ms is, right? Smarties, whatever, Gems if you're in India, whatever the right version is for you. So in this first section, so this is a pressure map. Remember I said, once we understand what behavior we want to change, then we have to understand two things. One, why the hell would anybody ever want to do that? We refer to those as promoting pressures, things that make a behavior more likely. And then two, given that people want to do it, given that there are promoting pressures, why aren't they already doing it? Something must be pushing back. Those are inhibiting pressures, right? So we're going to start with the bottom green stickies for each of these boards, right? It's like barriers and facilitators, although things I'll say, Matt, is that facilitators are really a shorthand for reducing a barrier, right? A facilitator isn't a reason to do something in the first place. It's the removal of a reason not to do something. So we use promoting and inhibiting pressures as our general terminology around these two things. But we're going to talk about promoting pressures first. So on your sticky, I want you to come up with 8 things that make it more likely, right, that when strengthened, I will eat M&Ms. Why do we eat M&Ms? So, Boris, we'll use our.
Let's put 5 minutes on the clock.
I would even put 5. These are genius people. Let's put 4. We'll give them a little background music.
Okay.
I want 8 good reasons why we eat M&Ms.
Okay, let's go for 4 minutes. And as Matt asked, let's throw the music on. Let's go, guys. 4 minutes.
Reasons to eat M&Ms.
Believe me or not, it's maybe behavioral science, Matt, but nobody never takes the first and the second row. It's like almost in every case.
It's like sitting in the front row of the lecture hall. Nobody wants to spit on by me. They want to sit farther back.
Of course.
They know if they sit too close, I'll call on them, and nobody wants that.
So I usually take the first like this. I won't waste my time, and I'm learning a lot with you creators, guys.
So remember, why do we eat M&Ms? I see some really great ones. And if you manage to fill in all 8, then you can browse around and check out what other people say.
Yeah, and maybe you can start to be also.
Don't change yours though. Once you got your 8 in there, no stealing from everybody.
use the stickies and use, of course, any emojis if you want to share love with your peers. That's the beauty of Miro. Creativity is around the corner, my friends. Oh, yeah, yeah. 2 minutes to go, guys.
And I don't know if it's Louis, Louise, but yours are amazing. We're definitely going to talk about yours. You're doing a fantastic job. These are very creative.
Yeah, very interesting. Sugar rush. Okay, next time we'll need definitely to find a way to send M&Ms to the participants of the webinar before we start.
So when my book came out years ago, because we use M&Ms as an example in the book, that is in fact what the publishing company did. So it was published by a division of Random House, and they sent all of the book reviewers the book and a package of M&Ms. And so there are lots of, for 4 or 5 years ago, there are lots of pictures of book reviewers on social media, like eating M&Ms and reading my book at the same time.
Okay.
And it has become such a joke in the community that I was giving a talk in, I want to say Houston, Texas or somewhere. And so I got up to start talking, and the moment I started talking about it, somebody ran in and put a giant bowl of M&Ms right next to me on the stage. And so then I got to eat M&Ms while I was giving this talk. Fantastic. This is what I want in life. It's just, feed me chocolate and let me talk. All right, 30 seconds, folks.
Yeah, we're almost done. You can, whether or not,
they can be emotional, they can be practical, they can be identity related, they can be sort of physiological, they can be cultural. There are lots of different things that influence our desire to eat. So if you're struggling to get your last couple, try and think about all the different categories of pressures that might influence why somebody does something. Ooh, Tom says my sticky disappeared. Sorry, Tom.
And I would say hallelujah. The time is done, my friends.
All right. So let's talk about some of these promoting pressures here. So Chetna said crunchy. Yeah, absolutely. So in the I'm going from the top left. I need to try to scroll around. So Jenna said crunchy. Yeah, absolutely. Right. In food science, we talk about something called mouthfeel, right? It's that sort of crunch that you get when you eat something. And I always sort of believe that, like, if M&Ms had no calories, and even if they tasted like nothing, right? Even if they were totally bland, I'd still probably eat them, right? If in the absence of inhibiting pressures, just for the crunch of it, I'd probably eat them, right? It is a delightful feel. If I go to Ram next door, right? Color. Yeah, absolutely. Color is a wonderful, powerful promoting pressure. This one's really surprising because it often is why engineers struggle with this activity, because engineers will often tell you that color is an irrelevant feature, meaning it doesn't matter because it doesn't change the primary feature, which is taste. But one of the things you have to do as a behavioral scientist and someone who wants to change behavior in the world is let go of your judgment. It's not about whether something should matter. It's about whether it does matter. And the reality is color does matter, right? You are all a bunch of smart people. Y'all have a favorite color of M&M. That's probably the one you either eat first or last, right? But you have a favorite color. You know they're not different flavors, right? You know that they all taste the same, but you still have one you like, right? Someone else said, they're fun to sort. Yeah, absolutely. Their color is part of that fun dynamic, right? So color absolutely is a powerful promoting pressure. Marini said boredom. Yeah, absolutely, right? They're an activity. I think a lot of people eat out of boredom. There's something to do with your hands. There's, they sort of have that engaging sort of feeling. Yeah, absolutely. Boredom is a powerful promoting pressure around eating. Is it the primary reason people eat? Well, we hope not, but that doesn't mean it doesn't affect it, right? And that's what we're looking for in pressures. We're looking for a range of pressures of different strengths. Karen said enjoy sorting. I absolutely agree with this one. This goes back to the color thing. And that that you can use them for decorating, right? Absolutely. They have alternative uses in sort of the food world other than just sort of like, well, I directly eat them. And that that absolutely can be part of it.
Matt, would you like to send the people working a bit also thinking on inhibiting the pressure? Because we
we're going to
still
talk
have
about.
5 minutes running.
We got time. Don't worry, man. I'm watching the clock. I got you.
No problem.
Don't worry. So, you've got the reason I love Louis or Louise. Like, there's lots of different ways we can say this name, so it's unclear which it is. Sorry about that. I'm competing in an M&M concept. Yeah, absolutely. There can be entirely exogenous to the M&Ms reasons to do something, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the M&Ms, right? It has to do with the environment in which the M&Ms are put forward, right? That sound that they make, absolutely, right? Like, there's sort of a like delightful, sort of engaging portion that kind of goes back to the crunch. So we have all these wonderful reasons. Take 4 minutes on the clock. Here's the thing. There are about 5 or 6 of you that have your camera on. None of you are eating M&Ms right now. Why not? If they're delicious and beautiful and caloric and they taste good and all these various things, we should be eating them, right? There must be something pushing back. So let's take 4 minutes and give us some inhibiting pressures. Why are people not eating M&Ms right now? Boris, give us 4 minutes.
This is done, and let's go with a scissor sister. Let's get back to the 80s. Okay, 2 more minutes on the clock. I want to see more love in this board, friends. Here's some sticky all around and good vibes and good ideas. We should ask an AI in the Miro to throw a bunch of hearts all around the board. One more minute to go. You're on mute, Matt. I don't know if you want to share things.
I was saying, in the interest of time, let's call it, man. We need every minute that we can get to talk about these. So if we stop our timer, I didn't realize I was on mute.
Let's go.
All right. So let's talk about, now that you've put some of these, you might actually be reconsidering some of your promoting pressures, right? I'll give you the example of where was it? There are lots of ones that, people said they're easy to eat as a promoting pressure. Sure, but lots of things are easy to eat. I have my AirPods here. Like, I could chew on one of these. Am I going to eat it? No, because it lacks promoting pressure, right? Because something being easy to eat isn't a reason to do it. It's the removal of a reason not to do it, right? And this matters because it helps us move forward into, hey, how do I actually address this thing? How do I make it easier to eat or not? Sometimes things exist on both sides. Sugar is satiating, right? It makes me feel less hungry. So hunger, powerful promoting pressure. But sugar also causes blood sugar spikes and me to gain weight, and they're not very good for my teeth, right? So something could be a promoting pressure in one context and also be an inhibiting pressure in another context. What we do once we have all this stuff is this moves us forward into a design step. Now, when we design, we're not just saying, well, I changed my behavior. Now we're saying, hey, here are all of the reasons, and I can design ideas against this. And usually we take them one at a time. So if we say, okay, well, color is a powerful reason to eat a powerful promoting pressure. It's a reason to eat M&Ms. What are all the color-based interventions I can come up with? We could introduce new colors. We could have bags with only one color. We could have a super rare color that you could try to collect. Like, I can come up with a bunch of ideas are just around one pressure, right? So I can say, oh man, I'm concerned about sugar. What are all the things we could do? Well, we could tell people sugar's not really that bad for them. We could reduce the sugar content. We could offset the sugar content by making, other kinds of fillers. Like, we could add sugar alcohols, blah, 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 blah. So each one of these is an opportunity to then say, well, what are all the things I could do about that specific pressure? So instead of saying, well, how do I get people to eat more M&Ms, which is a lot of what we do in Design Brainstorm, now we can say, hey, given what we understand about why people eat M&Ms, what can we do about it? And with that, I'll turn it back over to our wonderful host, Boris, to close us out with 4 minutes left. I know you have a few things you want to say.
That's amazing, my friend. Yeah, thank you so much, Matt, to drive us with so much passion into your world. I heard and learned so many things about me and why I'm always competing not to eat much M&Ms. But think about it, my friends. You can follow up, of course, this exercise with a beautiful pressure map template that is available since today on the Mirrorverse. You can just click on the Get Your Copy, or you can find us on the Air Generation page from the Mirrorverse. It's totally free and you know totally how to use it. So you'll be able also to enforce during your next workshop this kind of situation. Think also, if you want to go further, you can join Matt on his website, bc.io, or meet him on LinkedIn. And get in touch with all the content he can spread to you. And of course, if you want to attend the tracks, you can of course find more information and register online. It's now a bit of the time before we left to speak a bit about this great community we have raised. We have raised this community to share that kind of time together. I know you're on mute and sometimes it can be very frustrated. So that's why we have created this hub. In this hub, you can meet people from all over the world. You can connect, you can share your wins, you can ask questions, you can find a network, and you can find also course, mentoring session, opportunity, and a lot of resources. Actually, we are launching on the next Tuesday with Tatiana Rodriguez, that is a very great partner and a great friend of mine in the US, a co-work session, virtual co-working. So we will develop more and more the community in the next coming months to have also more informal touch, and might be after September starting e-learning, and maybe meetups would be back to also start to create real connection in real life. So you'll see any participants that have purchased a community ticket will already have a 30-day trial in this hub. It doesn't mean you're forced to anything. It's just a snack of what this community can bring to you and support. Of course, if you want to follow up, it's only the price of a coffee per month. So I think I even meet people in India that say, "Oh, 4.9 for the community, it's not a big deal for me." And so, yeah, it's not about the money is never an excuse, but if you find some value here, you're all welcome. And I hope I'll find most of you chatting in the community hub in the next coming days. And because it's almost the end, we have another more specific form to take your feedbacks.